Sitting on the back porch scheming, some of it fear, some of it dreaming. The game is on, your turn to play. Family's here, it's your backyard. Go ahead and play your card. Your heart is safe with us, find a way. Looking forward, looking back, who's to say what's your path? Let it take you far, be free to roam. Search your truth, your passion leads you. No one out this will lead you. Anywhere you are, you will find your way home. What's your move, your tower's full? Where do you push and where do you pull? Go ahead and reach, the time has come. Look around for inspiration. Life is more than one equation. Take a path away and it's been done. Looking up and looking down, your roots are firmly in the ground. Take you far, be free to roam. Search your truth, your passion leads you. No one out this world needs you. Anywhere you are, you can find your way home. Take your doesn't matter where you've been. When you come home, we'll deal you in. Come to know you as you are. Looking left and looking right, keeping your true self inside. We can take you far, be free to roam. Search your truth, your passion leads you. No one out this world needs you. Anywhere you are, you will find your way home. You will find your way home. You will find your way home.
Good morning. I'm Tim Gardner. I'm Tim Gardner. I'm honored to be your liturgist this morning. I'm joined this morning by our interim lead minister. Is that the correct? Acting lead minister, and she does. The Reverend Krista Tays, who presents today's message, as well as Madeline Harris, who is there. Thank you. Sorry for pointing. Our pastoral care person. I've heard talk that you will be at a certain place at a certain time following the service. Sure. Here?
How about just right up in the front?
Got it. Thank you. I'm so pleased to welcome each of you to our worship this morning, whether you are here in our lovely sanctuary or participating from home. We are united in one community. Eliot Chapel is a liberal religious community of spiritual seekers. We welcome each of you in the fullness of your age, race, ethnicity, your ways of being in body and mind, your gender expression, your sexual orientation, and your religious background. Our core values are freedom, respect, reason, and love. If you are visiting us for the first time, a special welcome to you. There are so many things you could have chosen to do this morning, and you've chosen us, and we are so thankful. I hope you feel warmly welcomed and that today's message speaks to you, and that we will see you again. If you are here in person, please fill out the guest form that you received on the way in, both sides if you have kiddos visiting with you, so that we may stay in touch with you. If you did not receive a guest form, please ask for one after the service. If you are visiting us online, let us know you are here by emailing welcome@eliotchapel.org so that we may personally welcome you to this beloved community. Welcome@eliotchapel.org. We hope you will join us for coffee hour in Adams Hall after the service. Come forward and to the right. If you are new, we invite you to take a blue mug, and if you are not new, we invite you to look for those who have taken a blue mug and say hello. Those of you who are wearing your name tags, thank you. And when you put them away, please look for the name of someone whom you have missed seeing. And over the coming week, consider picking up the phone or writing them a note just to say hello and to renew your friendship. No alternative motive here. Please pay special attention to the announcements in your order of service, as well as in the hallway leading into Adams Hall. Lots going on here once again. I draw your attention to one special announcement, a celebration of life service for Genevieve Turner, who passed away recently. Visitation starts at 10 a.m., service at 11, and reception following. Until her death, Genevieve was one of two surviving founding members of Eliot Chapel. The other, Julie Triplett, who is here. Do not stand up, but can you dance in your chair a moment? Without Genevieve, the courage and leadership of Genevieve and Julie and the other founding members of Eliot Chapel, we would not be here today. And now our chalice lighting. The Unitarian Universalist symbol is the flaming chalice, with the bowl representing the beloved community and the flame, the spark of life that bursts into light when we are grounded in love. Thank you, Kelly.
Good morning. Good morning. So lovely to see you here. Please join me in the reading of our congregational covenant that helps us to understand who we are for each other. It's in your order of service. As a free congregation, we promise to one another our mutual trust and support. To create beloved community, we promise to be kinder to each other than we have to be, to listen fully to each other with an open mind and heart, to speak responsibly and respectfully, to find ways to improve our church for all members and friends. I invite you to rise as you do for our opening hymn, number 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. I would invite the children and youth and actually anyone who wishes to come forward for our time for all ages. Hi. Very nice. Good morning. Hello. Hi. Oh, we got a whole lot of people. Hi. We got a whole bunch of kiddos coming down the stairs. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Oh, there we go. A few more yet. Wow, that's a lot of kids. Come on up. It's great to see so many kids. And youth, and adults, really all of you. All right, so today's story is set in the humanist tradition. We're talking about humanism today, which is the idea that as humans, we have our capacities for goodness and love and truth and hope and healing, each one of us in our hearts, and that we're part of the earth, and literally part of the earth, and the earth is part of us. And in our faith, we have a lot of respect for science. In fact, sometimes our science is brought into our religion. So, for instance, the theory of evolution is a sacred theory for us, because it really shows us how we have all changed and evolved over time to come to be who we are today. And the field of astronomy, whoa, that's a big one for us too, because we learn from astronomy that the Earth is made of stardust, and that because we're from the Earth, we are also made of stardust. And that's a pretty, pretty beautiful thing. And that is the spirit of the story, Who Is Ben? By Charlotte Zolotow, and pictures by Catherine Jacoby. It was a very dark night. No moon, no stars. But inside Ben's house, it was warm and cozy. He didn't turn on the light when he went upstairs to his room. He crossed in the darkness and looked out the window. He couldn't see the house across the street. He couldn't see the front steps of his own house. He couldn't see the giant copper beech tree that grew in their yard. Just blackness. Everything black. It was as though there was nothing in the world. He couldn't see himself. He was part of the indoor blackness, which was part of the outdoor blackness. It was a strange, secret feeling. He felt that he was all there was. He felt he was not really here. He was really the blackness itself, smooth and velvety and dark and safe. He was blended with the black night with no moon, no stars, no copper beech, no front steps. No one else in the world. Just the big enfolding dark that was part of him, that he was part of, as though in this quiet darkness he was the moon and the stars and the copper beech. Just then his mother came in the room and turned on the light. The room around him was warm and cozy, the bed turned down, and the bureau and desk and chair looked bright and exciting as though he had never seen them before. "Why are you in the dark?" his mother said. But instead of answering, he surprised them both. "Where was I before I was born?" he asked. And he felt the answer. He had been part of that strange, trembling, huge blackness with no light and no sound, no beginning and no end. And where will I be when I die? And again, he felt the answer. And he felt that lovely, soft, enfolding blackness. No moon, no stars, no beginning, no end. He was it, and it was Ben. And that is the end of our story. So we're going to sing you off to your classes now. From you I receive, to you I Our prayer this morning was written by Humanist Unitarian Universalists C. Lee and Thelma L. Hubble. So I invite you to join with me as you're willing and able in the spirit of prayer and meditation, whichever word feels closest to you. And let's ground ourselves in each other's presence, if you will, with 3 deep breaths. Let high ideals inspire our lives. Let high ideals inspire our lives and guide our steps. And let these ideals reflect what is real, transcendentally. We face the utterly inexplicable, incomprehensible strangeness of life and existence. Before it, we can but cover our mouths with our hands in mute silence and wonder. Let us enter into a time of silence and wonder. Let us speak the names of those we would lift up with our care. Let us also hold up the name of our affiliate minister, Reverend D. Evans, who was ordained yesterday afternoon in Springfield, Illinois. Let us then go our way in peace, joined as comrades, walking together into eternal mystery with good spirit. And let us love one another, for all the love we humans will ever know is what life on earth creates for life, is the love we show each other. May this love be real, not just words, but deeds, caring for one another. Amen. Be it so. Be it so. I invite you to stay seated for our meditative hymn, number 304, A Fierce Unrest.
Every month, we choose a different local organization with whom we share half of our Sunday morning offering. This month, we are supporting the Migrant and Community Action Project, or MICA, whose central purpose is to ensure that immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers have legal representation. We know that our immigration system is challenging, often intentionally difficult to navigate. Good legal representation can make all the difference. Let us do our part to ensure that we welcome those who seek to build their lives here. Would the ushers please come forward? Would the ushers please come forward? I think you missed a note there. Could you do it again?
I would like to, but that's all you get.
May we all join in the words of dedication as found in your order of service. To the work of the church, which is weaving the tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are our offerings. Thank you. Our reading this morning is the preamble to the Humanist Manifesto No. 1, written in 1933. In order to respect the original text, it has not been edited. And I forgot my ad lib, but let us be thankful for the blessing of the neutral gender language we get to enjoy today. The time has come for widespread recognition of the radical changes in religious beliefs throughout the modern world. The time is past for mere revision of traditional attitudes. Science and economic change have disrupted the old beliefs. Religions the world over are under the necessity of coming to terms with new conditions created by a vastly increased knowledge and experience. In every field of human activity, the vital movement is now in the direction of a candid and explicit humanism. In order that religious humanism may be better understood, we, the undersigned, desire to make certain affirmations which we believe the facts of our contemporary life demonstrate. There is real danger, great danger, of a final and we believe fatal identification of the word religion with doctrines and methods which have lost their significance and which are powerless to solve the problem of human living in the 20th century. Religions have always been means for realizing the highest values of life. Their end has been accomplished through the interpretation of the total environing situation, the sense of values resulting therefrom, and the technique established for realizing the satisfactory life. A change in any of these factors results in alteration of the outward forms of religion. This fact explains the changefulness of religions throughout the centuries. But through all changes, religion itself remains constant in its quest for abiding values, an inseparable feature of human life. Today, man's larger understanding of the universe, his scientific achievements, and deeper appreciation of brotherhood have created a situation which requires a new statement of the means and purposes of religion. Such a vital, fearless, and frank religion capable of furnishing adequate social goals and personal satisfactions may appear to many people as a complete break with the past. While this age does owe a vast debt to the traditional religions, it is nonetheless obvious that any religion that can hope to be a synthesizing and dynamic force for today must be shaped for the needs of this age. To establish such a religion is a major necessity of the present. It is a responsibility which rests upon this generation. This ends the reading.
So there's a little bit of change in the plans in that my singing partner, Cindy Minnis, sends her regrets as she is under the weather this morning. And I can't be both her and me. I wish I could. So this is a substitution from your program, which is a beautiful song by the late Kate Wolf. All gather round. There's something I would say. What brings us here together now has blessed us all today. The love has made a circle that holds us all inside. We're strangers are as family, and loneliness can't hide. So give yourself to love. If love is what you're after, open up your hearts to love, tears and laughter, and you give yourself comes when you're ready, comes when you're afraid. It'll be your greatest teacher, the best friend you have made. So you give yourself to love. Love is what you're after. Open up your hearts to the tears and laughter, and you give yourself love. Give yourself. Give yourself the love. If love is what you're after, open up your hearts to the tears and laughter, and you give yourself the love. Give yourself to
Thank you. What a wonderful introduction to this sermon, which is about the many different ways we've spoken about how we give ourselves to love. So one of the things you'll learn if you stick around here for a while is that I often tell stories from the past. We are a faith tradition where many of us do not know our stories. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but the two major reasons, first, is that the majority of our people join as adults and haven't gone through our religious education program that teaches some of our history. So I include history in many of my messages to help provide that foundation so that you understand the faith tradition that you have joined or are considering joining. And a second reason is that we have evolved so much over the centuries that it's easy to think that our history doesn't have much to offer us, that it is as obsolete as a BlackBerry. Got that? But a lot of messy, hurtful things happen when we turn away from our history. And that includes the stories that we can be proud of and the stories that show us our shadow side. Without these stories, there's no foundation, there's no common understanding of who we are and what it means. Connecting to our heritage helps us to reflect on the values that have kept us together through the centuries. And this helps us avoid what Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd calls fake fights that distract us from focusing on our mission, which is to be bearers of transformation and justice and to be always evolving so that we can give and receive love, the larger love that we are all a part of and from which we come. So today I want to tell you part of the story of how religious humanism came into American Unitarianism, a faith that started out as solidly Christian. It's a pretty dramatic story because was a lot of struggle about this. When humanism showed up, the traditionalists so strongly resisted it that they passed a form of creedalism to exclude those who wanted change. Creedalism means that you have to believe certain things to belong. Many of us have experienced creedalism if we came into Unitarian Universalism from another tradition. We needed more freedom to find things out for ourselves. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because that's the middle of the story. I want to start by giving you some background by going through 2,500 years of humanist history in less than 2 minutes so that we can get to the juicy stuff. Unless you think I am super smart, this is all written in William R. Murray's book, Reason and Reverence, Religious Humanism for the 21st Century. Does anybody want to time me? All right. Ready, set, go. In 500 BCE, the ancient Greek philosopher Protagoras said, "Man is the measure of all things," which was way out there for a time when most people believed that gods, goddesses, and spirits directed everything. Then Greek humanism went underground because it fell, and then the Roman Empire rose, and the Roman Empire became Christian, but 2,000 years later, Greek humanism was resurrected in Renaissance Western Europe in the 16th century, with theologians suggesting a lot of things that were considered heresies, like not focusing so much on where we're going after we die and more on the world that we are living now. They said humans are not depraved, but beings of ethical and intellectual worth. And at the same time, the Protestant Reformation with James Luther said we did not need priests to find our way to God. We could all have a personal relationship to God. And starting in the 18th century, philosophers took it even further. Immanuel Kant rejected traditional arguments for the existence of God. David Hume and John Locke developed a modern and skeptical worldview. Ludwig Feuerbach said God is a human invention, and Friedrich Schleiermacher said religion was an internal experience. And it was discovered the Gospels were written long after Jesus' death, there could never have been a great flood, and that the earth isn't flat. Gradually, the idea of individualism was born, that each person is separate and unique. This was an entirely new way of looking at humanity. So we considered that you could have a personal experience of God and meaning making. You could dare to question the existence of God, doubt the stories of the Gospels, and consider scientific discoveries that didn't match with the Bible. We weren't creatures of sin. We could use reason and rationality to make a better world. And yes, every person I've mentioned was white, upper class, Western, and male. So this thinking wasn't available to most people, and hasn't that been true for too long? But there you have it, and that brings us to the late 1700s when Unitarianism emerged in the United States, in Canada, and in Britain. Did I make it? It should have been about 1 minute and 47 seconds, because I timed it last night.
1:59.
All right, just barely. Yes, score! Because I made some new stuff up while I was talking. Unitarianism was created by people who wanted to bring the principles of individualism, reason, rationality, and respect for science into their Christian faith. They rejected the idea of original sin and creeds that you had to believe in to be a Christian. This new Christianity was a place for freedom of thought and conscience. They believed in a personal experience of God. They didn't see the Bible as written by God or that Jesus was God. They were so radical that they were ridiculed and shunned by other Christians, but they persevered together. And in the 1820s, in Boston, Massachusetts, which is where American Unitarianism started, there was a feeling that Unitarian Christianity was on solid footing, and it was onwards and upwards from there. They had it all figured out, and they just need to keep going. No change needed anymore. So you can guess that only lasted so long. You know how there comes this time in our lives, and some of you may have not arrived here yet, but you will, when you're pushing your grocery cart around the store and suddenly you realize that the music that's playing was like cutting edge when you were young, and now it's the background while you're picking out vegetables. And you're like, how did that happen? That's what happened to American Unitarianism in the 1830s. The kids of the early rebellious Christian Unitarians who had stuck out their necks with this radical faith. These kids were saying, you did not go far enough, because you still assumed that the only way to experience God is through Christianity. What if you can get to God without the Bible, without Jesus, just by focusing on your own soul? They were the transcendentalists. And the older radicals now became the traditionalists, holding down the fort they had created, and they actively tried to suppress these ideas. It was a huge family crisis, our first family crisis, actually. Now, these traditionalists, their intentions worked in the Northeast where they were in control. But there were now also congregations in Ohio, Illinois, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, Michigan, Wisconsin, who were very open to these ideas. Notice I didn't say Missouri. That came a lot later. But many of these congregations in these free states called themselves the New Radicals. And the movement grew and grew until it was the predominant way to be Unitarian in the West. So they were still theists. We hadn't gotten further than that yet, but there was a possibility of being a person of faith and not being Christian. That was, can you imagine trying to be that kind of person in the 1800s? In 1853, they got tired of getting ministers from Boston who didn't accept this, and they even started their own seminary in Chicago called Lombard College to support the formation of ministers outside of traditional Unitarianism. And today that is the modern Meadville Lombard School of the Ministry. And then in 1859, another thing kind of shook things apart, which is that Charles Darwin published Origin of the Species and offered a theory of evolution where there was no hand of God, but rather natural selection where species with genes that fit a particular environment were more likely to survive than those that didn't. And it seemed like evolution didn't need God at all. So if you didn't need to be Christian, and if you didn't need to be theist, then why not be a humanist? They weren't exactly using those words yet in 1859, but for some Unitarians, they came to the conclusion that you could hold onto all the values of our faith that we held in common, like reason and rationality, the valuing of science, the centrality of personal experience, without having to get there through God. Everything we needed to understand our place was in nature, which we were part of. So in 1865, the traditionalists called an emergency national convention. And they passed a creed, because there was still more of them than there were of the radicals. They passed a creed affirming allegiance to our Lord Jesus Christ. The goal was to force the radicals to either accept Christianity as the only way to be Unitarian or to leave. It was kind of like our first attempt at like a heresy trial, which we're not really supposed to do. But it was an attempt to intentionally exclude certain beliefs. So the radicals went on their own direction, and in 1867 they formed the Free Religious Association. Many of them remained Unitarian ministers. They were soon joined by humanist rabbis and the founder of the ethical culture movement, Felix Adler, who founded the ethical culture societies like the Ethical Society of St. Louis, right here in Missouri. And a whole lot of Unitarian ministers gave up on Unitarianism and went into the ethical culture movement. But it is important to state in this time that humanism did not mean atheism. That came later. Most humanists weren't atheists, but the feeling was that God did not need our attention for us to be moral and ethical beings. So why not spend our energy in a better way? Now, this division within Unitarianism was exhausting. You know, it kind of reminds me of what it's like when family members or friends are estranged from each other. You're not talking, you're not hanging out, but the relationship is still hanging there, taking space in your consciousness. And the silence and separation is the relationship. And you're still making choices in your life, still claiming an identity in light of that relationship, even when you are not conscious of it. You may never speak again. And sometimes that is for the best if the relationship was really hurtful, but it doesn't mean the relationship has ended. It's just taken a new form. And what happened between the two sides is that there was so much enmity that they made a lot of decisions in light of who they saw as the opposite side from them. So they were still in relationship, even though they weren't going to the same meetings, they weren't reading the same theologians, they weren't going to the same schools. There was still a relationship, and it was exhausting because sometimes you had two congregations in the same town. So, for instance, there was a church started here in St. Louis. The Unity Church of St. Louis was started intentionally to be for the radicals, because the Church of the Messiah, which was the first Unitarian church, was not open to anything but Unitarian Christianity. And the people who were there found out that there just wasn't going to be any place for them. And Chicago, like the Western Unitarian Conference based in Chicago, actually intentionally started a new church here in St. Louis called the Unity Church, so that there could be a place for radical Unitarians in St. Louis. Now, that church merged in 1930, in the 1930s, for reasons of necessity, but some say that some of the challenges in that church are still rooted in that original division. So you see, it cost us a lot. And in the 1890s, enough people on both sides decided that the estrangement was too much. It was costing too much, and they needed to find common ground. And they actually met. And after long, long meetings, I can't even imagine how I would sit through meetings that long, they affirmed a statement of faith that made room for them all. And there was peace for a little more than a decade. Just a decade. It's a good try. Because then World War I started in 1914. And it was supposed to last a few months, and it dragged into 4 years. And it was a gruesome, bloody war with huge casualties. And World War I made a lot of people of faith very cynical about God and about human nature, and there was this feeling that human nature itself needed to be rehabilitated, that we had abandoned who we really were, which were creatures of goodness and hope and love and justice. So our focus needed to be less on belief and more on helping our very wounded world heal. And this is when social justice really gelled as a central tenet of Unitarianism. There was social justice before, but it was not so widely understood as being really an integral part of being Unitarian. But that started after World War I. And it wasn't about what you believed for so many Unitarians anymore. Were you helping to build what the humanists called the commonwealth of man? And this is when humanism really began to grow in our movement, because so many of us were hungry to let go of stuff that we felt was holding us back and to do something that made a difference here, that could help us move away from the self-destruction that we had just gone through. More and more ministers began identifying themselves as humanists. And when the war ended, it was the churches these ministers served that were bursting at the seams. And this is when we saw the last organized attempt of the traditionalists to try and hold onto their power. At the General Conference in Detroit in 1821, the theme was the faith that is in us. And once again, the traditionalists made the argument that Unitarianism would descend into utter chaos if there was not a God at the center of it. It would mean nothing, do nothing, leave nothing behind. Humanism would destroy us. That was the message. And the doomsday message, it didn't work. This even turned off many of the Christians who didn't want to be identified with this kind of fear-mongering. So the conference ended with a fragile unity of the different sides intact, and we entered into a time of moral clarity, where Christians, non-Christian theists, and humanists shared a deep concern for the well-being of humanity and saw our congregations as a place to build up a moral consciousness rooted in the values of reason, justice, love. They hoped that this could bring humanity itself together in ultimate freedom and liberation. And it was just in time, because 9 years later the stock market would crash and the Great Depression would begin, and that is when the first Humanist manifesto that we read the preamble to today, that's when it was written. In a time when so many were losing trust in the systems that no one thought could fall apart. And then World War II hit. So much for the war that would end all wars. And it's like the floodgates were opened in our faith, and humanism grew so much that it became the primary way to be Unitarian, and the presence of Christians in our movement started to shrink. Now, that is also a difficult story, and I'll get to that story in another sermon, or we would be here all morning. Because what had happened was that an informal creed had been created, excluding those who weren't humanist. And then we had to learn again what a faith grounded in freedom of belief and freedom of conscience really looks like. But like I said, that's for another day. What's important for us to remember now is that so much of how we experience Unitarian Universalism is a result of the tremendous and freeing influence of humanism. Unitarianism changed from being only Christian and only theist to welcoming more ways of being a person of faith, and it's that room that we still offer today that has drawn so many of us into this faith. Humanism is so strong that even those of us who have a belief in a transcendent power, we frame our belief through a humanist lens, understanding that it's through our own human eyes and our human bodies and our human minds that we make sense of what is bigger than us. We have a deep and abiding love of humanity itself and commit ourselves to lives of moral and ethical choices. And we make little and big choices in our lives, thinking of not only what is good for us as individuals, but what is best for all of us, for all of humanity. And we know that we can't wait for a God or something bigger than us to do it for us. It rests on us to bring healing and hope into our broken time. So we are both the problem and we are the solution. And it's still pretty radical. We live in a country that probably couldn't yet elect a humanist for president, eh? Every president so far has had to make a declaration of faith that is grounded in theism. We still live in times when it takes courage to step outside that way of being a person of faith. And if you're not a humanist, please don't think I'm telling you that there's no place for you or that your faith doesn't have courage. That is absolutely not true. I know your faith takes courage. I know it takes ongoing discernment and conviction. And our faith has a long track record of courage. From those first Christians who took on all that ridicule, to the radicals who believed you could love God without being Christian, to the humanists who risked being alienated in a faith tradition that they loved and believed in. So this is part of our story. For those of you who grew up in Unitarian Universalism, this is your inheritance. If you became Unitarian Universalist as an adult, this legacy became part of your story when you signed the membership book. And for those of you who are considering this faith, is this a legacy that you could be proud to accept? And if you've been around for a while, there may be a time when your way of being Unitarian is challenged by those with new ideas and ways of being faithful. Will we be like the traditionalists who resisted? Or will we welcome the changes even if it means being uncomfortable and lost for a little while? So this morning, let us be thankful for those who preceded us in all their greatness and all their imperfections. They have given us so much. May it be so. All of our hymns are humanist hymns this morning. And our closing hymn is 311, Let It Be a Dance. It's a fun one. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of compassion. These we will carry in our hearts until we are together again. And let us be seated for one final musical gift.
Untangle me with a gentle comb, 'cause I've got a tender head. I've got a tender head. Strong shoulders, white shoulders, lilacs in bloom, twirl around in a purple dress in a lavender room, a lavender room. Dancing in the cloud, a dusting song and a powder dream, where the feelings are allowed, feelings are allowed. Oh, set my table with willow wares, flowers are all blue. I've got a place I can see it all and savor the view. Clock chimes, cicadas and bees, the squeak and slam of a back porch door, the humming of the breeze, the humming of the breeze. Windstorms and rainstorms and tassels of corn, a rumbling truck up a grassy lane as the baying cattle warn, the baying cattle warn. Set my table with willow wares, flowers are all blue. I've got a place I can see it all and savor the view. Start singing, keep singing, find the perfect key. No melody when the women sing, only alto harmony, alto harmony. Real living, keep living, lights forever on, memories of a life well lived and a song forever sung, a song forever sung, a song forever sung. Oh, set my table with willow wares, flowers are all blue. I've got a place I can see it all and savor the view. Just set my table with willow wares, flowers are all blue. I've got a place I can see it all and savor the view, and savor the view that reminds me of you.
Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, David. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Nick, who made this service possible. Thank you for blessing us with your presence today. Let's go have some coffee and good conversation. See you next week.